Arctic air, blizzard conditions, and new snowfall totals. I've got all of it for you in today's video. Welcome in, folks. Happy Monday, November 24th. And we're really starting to get into a more winter-like pattern. We've had a big warm-up, and that's continuing for some of us. But from Thanksgiving onward, I think we're going to be tracking snowfall at least somewhere here east of the Rockies in the United States for the foreseeable future. And yeah, I even foresee some potential blizzard conditions here not that long from now for some of us, and some very big totals by the time all is said and done. Now, if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name's Gerald. I'm a meteorologist at WCCB Charlotte. If you haven't already, go ahead and like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell for the latest notifications. Doing all of that is free. It doesn't cost you a penny. Doesn't sign you up for something that you need to worry about. All it does is help keep you weather-wise and help me to continue running this channel the way that it currently is, and hopefully in an even bigger and better way down the road. All right, folks. Well, with that said, let's dive right on into it. And next to me, what you're looking at is the latest run of our European AI model showing snowfall. And I don't want you to look at this and take exact totals away from it, but just look at the general pattern ahead of us. You can see swaths of snow being laid across the United States, and slowly but surely starting to work further south and east as we go deeper into December. I really think that's how this is going to unfold with the current pattern. I'll be showing you all the data that points to that throughout the video today. Before we get too caught up on, what's to come 5 or 10 days from now, though, I do want to break down what's happening out there, because it's obviously a very busy holiday week ahead, a lot of travel going on, and we do have some impactful weather already beginning out there and likely to continue here for the next couple of days. All right, so we've got this dip in the jet stream, the dip down over the Rockies. That what happened there is we had a lot of upper level lift on top of downsloping winds over Colorado, and that's a classic setup for a Colorado low to form, and that's exactly what we had happen yesterday as we expected, and now slowly but surely pulling on up into Kansas, but bringing a lot of Gulf moisture out in front of it, and even some unstable air. So we are going to need to watch for severe weather today, and as we go into the next day or two, another piece of energy, you see it up here into Montana spinning away. This one could potentially produce blizzard conditions for some of us and huge lake effect snowfall totals right around Thanksgiving. So a pretty impactful travel week up for at least some of us as all of this begins to evolve over the coming days. You can see it quite well on radar as well. We'll go ahead and start with that southern piece of energy. We've got heavy torrential downpours through much of Arkansas, down through Texarkana. We're going to get heavy rain in Louisiana, East Texas, places like Houston. Already raining good in Dallas, over towards Shreveport. All this going to begin to move east over the coming days. And then up north, here's the wintry side. It's a separate system, but eventually going to combine into one here. Getting some snow and ice through much of Montana today, up towards Calgary, seeing some snowfall. And this is going to produce a pretty good swath of snow through the Dakotas, Minnesota, up into Canada, and then eventually through the Great Lakes as we go later on into this week. Speaking of it, let's time it out for you with our latest high-resolution model data. All right, let's start to time this out for you throughout the day today. I think we're mainly dry here east of the Appalachian chain, but out towards the Central Plains and the Southern Plains and starting to get even into the Deep South, rainfall and even some severe weather action going to unfold. In terms of severe weather, it's an all-hazard day, folks, including tornadoes, and that's going to be down here into this section through portions of East Texas, down into Louisiana, maybe the southern fringe of Arkansas, and into portions of potentially even Mississippi by the evening and overnight of tonight. So watching that to the north of there, Memphis, up through Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, just some good old-fashioned rainfall. Not expecting severe weather that far north. Notice what happens, though, by overnight tonight. Here comes our northern stream energy. Remember, I said they were going to combine. Our original Colorado low kind of placed right into here, starting to fizzle, though, as new low pressure deepens and becomes stronger up towards the Dakotas. And with that, a big band of heavy snow and even potentially some blowing winds. So blizzard conditions, not going to rule it out up for our friends up there. I'll show you how much snow could fall here coming up in just a moment. But all of that begins to work east. By the time we're waking up tomorrow morning on Tuesday, pretty heavy rain, Atlanta, Athens, up into portions of the Western Carolinas by the afternoon, into Ohio, Western PA, Kentucky, West Virginia, Tennessee. Definitely going to see some rain and could still hold on to a bit of a severe weather threat down south closer to the Gulf. So be mindful of that. I'm not expecting an outbreak or anything like that, but just keep it in mind. Meanwhile, heavy snow continuing to fall up here into North Dakota, northern Minnesota for your Tuesday morning and afternoon. You kind of begin to move this ahead into time, and just some good old-fashioned rain working up into Pennsylvania, New York. Again, I've been telling you a couple days now, this is going to be a warmer one for you. It'll turn cold after, but going to start as just some good old-fashioned rain. And then, yeah, watching some thunderstorm threats down here into Georgia. I think we're going to get a more defined line into places like Birmingham, Atlanta by the afternoon and evening of your Tuesday, maybe Chattanooga. Knoxville could even see some of those rumbles of thunder and some severe weather potential with that as well. And then heavy snow, check it out by the evening and overnight of Tuesday. We're starting to get a good clip of snow into Minneapolis, into extreme northern Wisconsin, portions of the UP. Like I said, do not rule out at least blizzard-like conditions. I might not hit the exact criteria, but it could be whipping and blowing snow pretty good here for folks up that way as this mid-latitude cyclone really begins to gain some strength, continues working east, and by the time you're waking up Wednesday morning, snowing good into northern Wisconsin, raining good into the I-95 corridor, and this front slowly going to continue to work on through the day Wednesday. Check it out here with our European model. We'll back it up to where we left off here Wednesday morning. You can see it continues to work eastbound. Here's by Wednesday evening. I know we've got the Navant Health Parade here in Charlotte, North Carolina, Wednesday night, hosted by WCCB Charlotte. So I'll be there on the float. Check me out. But either way, I think we'll be good in places like Charlotte for any Wednesday night activities. Same thing for Raleigh. Much of the Mid-Atlantic and the Southeast going to be good by then in terms of traveling if you're doing any of that Wednesday night. But then we've got good snow continuing and the lakes really opening up the floodgates, or I should say the snow gates here into portions of Michigan, especially the UP and the Western Shore. And then you can see by the time we get to Thanksgiving afternoon, all of the lakes begin to unfold some pretty good snowfall, and that holds on all the way really through Saturday before you see our next system starts to set up shop. All right, let's break down snowfall totals for that first system. Then we'll talk about the pattern change it's going to bring the next storm that's going to bring snow, I think, a bit further south than the first one does. All right, how much snow can we expect now through about Thanksgiving? Well, into the northern plains, I think North Dakota is going to get a pretty good swath of snow. It looks like the majority of that heavy swath really going to be a bit of a diagonal through the state where we could see 3 to 5+ inches of snow before all is said and done. And like I said, with the wind kicking up, do not rule out at least brief blizzard conditions. That same swath of snow kind of continues working eastbound into north and central Minnesota, up into the beak of Minnesota. We could see some pretty good totals, maybe up near double-digit snowfall would not be something that we could rule out. Down towards Minneapolis, I think a quick maybe 1 to 3 inches on the backside of the low. But again, the wind going to start to crank as well. So travel conditions could become hazardous definitely for a time period as the storm works on through. The good news, I think the snow will stop falling by Thanksgiving. So, we can start to clear the roadways. And obviously, this is part of the country that's built for it a little bit more than if a place like Atlanta were to see big snow right before Thanksgiving. All right, what about the Midwest? Well, I do think the Great Lakes are going to open up here big time. Check out the UP and some of these totals that are showing up. Now, this is the blend of models too. So this can sometimes be a little bit more conservative. Looking at anytime you see these peachy colors, that's 2 to 3 feet plus of potential snowfall. This is now through Friday morning, so Black Friday morning. So big snow up there, I think, is going to definitely be something. So get the snow plows ready if you live in the UP. Looking like a pretty good one. The further south you go into Wisconsin, obviously lesser totals, but could still see a good 1 to 3 inches here into the central part of the state. I also think the western shoreline of Michigan going to get a pretty good winter storm out of this, especially the northern bit here, where we could see more than a foot of snow, probably less than that further south. But again, a snowy Thanksgiving, a white Thanksgiving, going to have the turkey, with snow falling outside of your window. So I think that's kind of fun and festive, at least personally. Although obviously a travel headache. Not seeing much in terms of snow for Chicago, Des Moines, areas further south, but the next storm could be better for you. So again, don't go anywhere. I'm going to talk about that one next. All right. What about the Northeast? Well, the Tug Hill going to get a good snow coming off of Lake Erie. I think Erie, or I should say, is Erie the name of the town, right? Yeah, I think I'm blanking here. Yeah, Erie, PA. That's a town. I don't know why. I just completely forgot that. Erie, PA, into Cleveland, Ohio, and then up into Buffalo could get some pretty good snow out of this. And then the Tug Hill, Watertown, going to get blasted pretty good. Nothing for the I-95 out of this one, but, the more snow we lay further to your north and west, the better it'll be later on, likely for folks out that way. All right, those are snowfall totals. Let's talk about the pattern change. It's going to start the next system and then break down potential snow with that one. Well, we're going to get a big shot of cold air after Thanksgiving. That's one of the reasons the Great Lakes are going to get mighty cold. But I think everyone basically that's in the blue on this map here going to have a quite chilly Thanksgiving. For some of us, it's going to be a big swing. For example, I know I always mention Charlotte, but I live here, so I just know the weather a little bit better probably. We were 80 degrees on Saturday, and then we're going to be about 50 to 55 come Thanksgiving. So big swings on the way for a lot of us. But as for the East, at least the Southeast, it's not going to be very long lasting. This is going to be a very transient shot of cold air. And then we're going to get a new shot of cold air, but it's going to happen down into the plains, into the Rockies. And this is the pattern that sets up by the start of December. This is only about a week away now, so we're not talking about off into La La Land anymore. Big shot of cold air. That's this blue connection, these snow miser colors. The polar vortex parked right over northern Canada and the Hudson Bay, getting extended down into the Rockies. Meanwhile, a big ridge spiking in the eastern U.S., and this is going to create a classic battleground zone in between where you've got, again, all this cold air out this way, and then you've got this warmer air. And between the two, you've got a big corridor of lift in the atmosphere or divergence aloft. And we're going to get a lot of little pieces of shortwave energy to kind of ride that. And that's going to help create our storm systems. And then the cold air, obviously, going to create the snowy side. And the warmer air could create a bit of a stormier side. So I know you probably want to think about snow in places like Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, Georgia, maybe even the Carolinas. But I think it's going to be more of a stormy pattern really over the next week. Other places, though, up into the Midwest, the plains, we could even get this down closer to the Ohio Valley and portions of the Northeast at times. This could be a bit of a colder, snowier pattern for a while, and then eventually the pattern's going to flip again, and I'll talk about how that'll happen here at the end of the video. But that's what's going to do it, and you can see it holds on for a while, this same general idea through, I really think, the first week of December, where we've got these clashing boundaries that set up looks to be the name of the game. All right, let me show you model data. Let me show you, obviously this is model data. Let me show you what this could look like though in terms of who could see snow, who could see rain, who could see ice. Yeah, that's also on the table. Well, let's start this out on Thanksgiving afternoon. You can see we've got all the lake effect snow happening and then that big block of colder air moving into the eastern U.S. that I mentioned. Then we get a piece of energy. Look at the Pacific Northwest. See all that snow and rain moving in as well on Thanksgiving? That's going to ride the boundary I told you about. And I do think it looks like a nice tongue of snow tries to work into places like Des Moines, maybe even St. Louis, Chicago. Check it out here on the GFS. Doesn't start as much. It kind of gets eaten up by some dry air and some upper level lift kind of dies out over it, but could get a quick little shot of snow. And then a bigger storm starts going here by next Monday on the GFS. And check out the boundary I mentioned. Rain and storms to the southeast, big snow, and even some ice up to the northeast. Minnesota, the Dakotas, Nebraska, potentially portions of Wisconsin, maybe even portions of Michigan could try to get in on the snowy action. That's not all, folks. Then we just keep this going of this active pattern. You see another shot of it, even gets some snow into the northeast by about 10 days from now. And you just see the general pattern continuing here, where you get these rounds of snow and ice to kind of move through the corridor. See how it starts to move south and east, though? I'm starting to believe that, and obviously this is, crazy La La Land GFS, but I think something like that could happen. And what in the world is that at the bottom? Is that a hurricane in the Gulf? Forget that. That's not happening. But crazy GFS model stuff. But I think, it shows the general pattern all right here, at least, and that's why I'm showing it to you. Obviously, though, do not take every bit of the GFS model as gospel. That's a terrible idea. Tell you from firsthand experience. I've had my heart crushed many times by the GFS. All right, you keep it going. Here's the European model. It starts the same way. We've got Thanksgiving snow in the Great Lakes. Here comes that tongue of moisture. Now, here's a big difference. The European gets that first little system and it amplifies it much quicker and keeps the upper level lift over the storm. That allows it to maintain itself. And it's a good little borderline winter storm for Illinois, Indiana, Chicago, heck, St. Louis getting in on snow. The Ohio Valley northbound getting a shot of snow. Even gets a little bit of snow here into the northeast by the time we get into Saturday and Sunday of this coming week. So that would be, again, just after Thanksgiving. I'm going to have to switch back one model run as well so we keep going ahead into time. You can see that works in. Now, it's still mainly rain for the I-95, at least on this run, but that cold air that's coming in after Thanksgiving, if it lingers, could definitely be a bit of a wintry mischief kind of event up there for our friends, a lot of you in the Northeast. Then comes the next shot of cold air, and again, you get kind of this boundary riding action. Now, the European calms down a little bit after that one, but check it out. We've got southern stream energy continuing here to try to ride up the eastern seaboard. You've got cold air to the north and everything slowly shifting further east as we go further into time. So I've been preaching here for the past really week or two now. I think we're going to start in the plains and slowly get this pattern further south and east. And I'm sticking to that forecast here, as in you can kind of see why here into the models. Now, still a ways away from all of this, so that's why I only kind of briefly showed you the model data in terms of that. Let me show you the ensembles, though. They show you the percentage chance of seeing snow and ice out of this, and then we'll break down the long range and show you how this pattern might evolve and why I think that areas further east and south could get in on the fun later on into December. All right, here's the European ensembles. What do they show? Well, this is Thanksgiving, and this is the chance of seeing, we'll just call it accumulating snowfall. How about that within a 24-hour period? So obviously, the Great Lakes and up into Canada looking just fine as you would expect, given the data we've gone over so far. Here we go, though. That tongue dive south, that next storm system, the European very excited about snowfall chances in Iowa, down into Illinois, into Indiana, running a 60 to 70% chance of seeing accumulating snow out of that. And even gets it into places like Detroit, northern Ohio, and check out the Northeast, at least the interior, also getting pretty good chances of snowfall out of that one. That would be by this coming weekend. Then you see what looks like another storm developing on the ensembles here, back out into the Rockies, but the signal kind of fades a little bit and dies out a little bit as the model's kind of struggling to pick up when exactly the next storm will be. And there's a lot of moving energy in the atmosphere that the models are kind of disagreeing on into the longer range, but does keep lake effect snow chances up nonetheless. And you can kind of see just that general path of snow remaining here in the longer range up into the Great Lakes and portions of the Northeast. So the European ensemble show. What about the GFS ensembles? Well, again, starting on Thanksgiving, big lake effect snow looking likely. Then comes that next tongue of snow. And right now, highest chances for that one panning out definitely looks to be places like Iowa and Illinois. The GFS ensembles kind of dry it up a bit more before the Northeast, but do kind of bring it into the Great Lakes a little bit. And you can just kind of see, again, the model's struggling with what exactly the next storm will be after that one. But you see that pathway here where we have that overlapping of air masses. A lot warmer in the Southeast, so no snow, but then you've got kind of that battleground zone where we could see some snow and ice begin to accumulate with any little shortwave pieces of energy that ride the boundary. And because of that, that does mean ice could also be a concern. Now, again, I'm not seeing a major ice storm or anything right now, but the pattern does support some ice. And you can see it kind of start to gain some traction here on the model in that 7 to 10 day range, once more right along that battleground, maybe as far south as Texas, Oklahoma, up through the Midwest. Portions of the Northeast could get in on some icy concerns here once we get through about the first week of December. That general time frame looks to be go time. All right. That's the next 7 or 10 days. What about after that? What about, friends in Virginia and Tennessee, Arkansas, the Carolinas, the I-95 corridor? You're saying, well, Gerald, what about me? When am I going to see some snow potential? Well, I do think December rather, has some potential. Let me show you why later on in the month could get more exciting. All right, picking up where we left off, this is 7 days from now. You can see we've still got that big trough out west. How does it evolve on the ensembles, though? Well, it's gotten pretty consistent that we're going to start to get a look like this right around the start of the second week of December. And basically what happens is the flow just turns kind of zonal across the lower 48. However, we still got cold air still oozing down into the U.S. So maybe the Northeast is still cold, the Midwest, the PNW, but more mild still looking down here into the southern United States. What does that mean? Well, that means that we're likely to get low pressure tracks that look something a little bit more like this. And that could be good news for our friends in the Northeast, maybe even the I-95 corridor. If you get things like that, often what happens is the snowfall map looks something kind of like this in the blue. I know it's not the best blue. In fact, let's see if I can pick a different color. We'll do the snow here in this kind of orange color. That's generally where the snow would be in a track like this. So that could be better for folks into the I-95 than maybe the current pattern. Still not great for the Southeast and the Mid-South, but it's slowly, going to get better, I think, as we go deeper into December. And I think really one of the big culprits for that is likely to be the MJO. Also, I just realized you cannot see the time there on that, but the plus whatever hours, that's how many hours out it was. That's my bad. Forgot to fix the graphic there. The MJO, though, is something I've been harping on a lot and something that I think could be pretty useful. Remember, phase 8, phase 1, and phase 2, those are the favorable phases for cold air in the eastern United States. You can see it here. It's phase 8. A lot of blue in the U.S. Phase 1, a lot of blue. Phase 2, not so much, actually. What was the other one? There was another one. Oh, phase 7. That's the one. Phase 7, sorry. I forget I said 2. So 7, 8, and 1. Those are the three good ones for colder air. Well, where are we at right now in terms of the MJO? Well, it's not half bad. We're starting to get into phase 7 right now. So that's why we're starting to see winter weather chances pick up for a lot of us. But phase 8, that's the real money phase, and a lot of them data right now suggesting we're going to start to get there right around the second half of December. From the middle of the month onward, things look a little bit more promising in terms of the MJO. However, there is another obstacle to overcome, and that's the NAO, which is kind of just throwing havoc all over the forecast in terms of a lot of things. And it's one of the reasons why we're seeing more of the zonal flow in the models in the longer range. Let's talk about the NAO, the importance of it, and what it could do and what we need it to do to start to get those snow chances further south. All right, well, if this picture looks pretty familiar to you, that means you were probably paying attention over the past 5 minutes or so. This is what a positive NAO looks like, and it looks a lot like what the European ensembles are showing right around that second week of December, like I showed you earlier. A lot of cold air up into Canada and even oozing down into the northern part of the United States, but much more mild here into the southeast, the deep south, and the southwestern United States, but an active storm track in between. So this is a positive NAO, and this is kind of what's killing us a little bit. Even though the MJO is becoming more favorable, if the NAO stays positive instead of negative, it's going to get a pattern like this. Now, it's not all bad news. Like I said, I think the Northeast could still cash in on this. Maybe even coastal sections in the Northeast could. The Midwest could cash in. The Northern Plains, it's just not great if you're in the Mid-Atlantic and the Southeast, not as favorable of a pattern. This is what we want. This would be a negative NAO. What happens is the jet stream buckles. We get big ridging here up into Greenland. We get it up into Alaska, and that just creates a free pathway of cold air straight from the Arctic right down into the eastern United States, and that gives you more, generally speaking, of kind of a coastal track that would produce more of a nor'easter type thing, a Miller A. You can get some Miller Bs with that as well. But that's what you really want if you want bigger snow for areas further east and further south, especially in the United States. So here's the problem. The data has been all over the place, folks. We're starting to get into a bit more of a positive NAO right now. So that's why this next shot of cold air is going to be very transient and it's not going to last very long. Then it shows a big drop right to start December. That's kind of that shot of cold air. It's trying to, interact a little bit more with the NAO. Then after that, now a lot of the data is suggesting the NAO is going to turn maybe more positive for the first even half of December. Now, I know that sounds bad, but I'll caution you, just yesterday it showed a very negative NAO for the first half of December. So I think, honestly, from the second week of December on, the NAO is going to control a lot. By that point, the MJO, the first kind of teleconnection chart I showed you, it was becoming more favorable. I think that's pretty good. That one's a little bit easier to forecast. The NAO, though, the models really struggle with quite often here, especially at the start of winter time. So we'll see. I know yesterday it looked good. Today it looks kind of bad. I'd hold all the horses, keep them in the stable. I still think the middle of December onward, if we can just get a shot of a negative NAO combined with that MJO in phase A, a lot more folks could get in on the action. But either way, still seeing snow. I still think it's going to slowly creep east and south as we go deeper on into December. Alrighty, well, that was a lot of information in today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, let me know in the comments. Let me know where you're watching from. Let me know if you have any fun Thanksgiving plans coming up and all that fun stuff. All right, I'll have a great one. Stay safe, stay warm once this big shot of cold air comes, and I'll see you all next time.